Well, we have another casualty, another death. I just watched someone sent me the link to the news with, just half an hour ago. Right? Okay. He's an influencer with over 50,000 people on the Instagram, followers on the Instagram. His name is actually, I think he's a Eurasian, but he got a twin brother, Larry Koh, Larry, Lawry, Koh, a young chap who actually passed away in his sleep. Passed away in his sleep. So most probably people who pass away in his sleep suddenly, right, without any signs of illness, sudden death like that, normally die with a heart condition. Okay, and of course nobody want to know what's going on. Right? It's an inconvenient truth that nobody wants to know. And this added up to the recent death, the sudden death, right? The sudden death of a young guy, right? Teenager, I think, 17 years old, passed away during his training, badminton training on the field. Yeah. No, I didn't want to talk about all this anymore, about sudden death, about excess death, right? But it's a call coming to roost. I do not want to talk about this. I think some people in MOH, Ministry of Health, it will be very are actually very disappointed that I didn't talk because they need someone to post POFMA to stop people from speculating, spread all the speculation and all that. But I didn't want to talk, okay? Because there's no use of talking now. Uh, it doesn't help anyone, right? It doesn't help anyone basically because over 80%, 90% of people have taken the jab, right? Speculate also no use. Put it that way, right? Why make your life more difficult, right? Why make your life more difficult? You will be stressed and always think about all this risk and all that. I think it's over as far as I'm concerned, right? It's over. There's no way that we can turn around the clock. There's no way we can save anybody. There's no way we can do better to prevent anybody from getting harmed if it is true. If it's not true, then okay lah. All this death had nothing to do with the jab. Okay, fine, right? Everybody just live happily ever after. And it's not scientific. It's not scientific. Just because of one or two deaths, you start to speculate or say that it's because of jab. Yeah, it's meaningless because in science depended on very much on statistical studies analysis. So if you do not have a great data set to do the analysis and respect the data set, right, then you are not getting anywhere, right? You can't say, oh, because every day got 60 people died from heart attack, so this is norm. It's not. Right? That's unscientific also, right? Because before the COVID, before the jab and everything, maybe it's less than 60 people who die every day from heart attack, right? So we want to know why is the increase, right? So it's meaningless on all this jabbing, try to defend, try to speculate is meaningless. But just take care of people around you. If they feel very tired suddenly, right? heart beating too fast, heart chest pain, be careful. Go and see the doctor as soon as possible, at the shortest space. Never mind whether it's a jab. It doesn't matter now, right? It doesn't matter. You just have to deal with the health condition. Right? People having heart attack will have some symptoms. Prior, I believe they will have certain symptoms, are sweating, cold sweat, and all that. There are symptoms. Go and don't take that lightly. Go and see a doctor. Right? Yeah. Right. So that is all I can tell people. Right? Practical things to prevent more sudden death. You have to take care of your heart. You have to be mindful about the symptoms, the signs that your body is giving you. Other than that, whether it's due to jab or not, it doesn't matter anymore. We can't even do anything if it is true, right? We don't need to do anything if it's not true. So be it. But a friend actually sent me another link. Another friend sent me another link that shows the data, the information that was acquired from the FDA in US through the Freedom of Information Act. They have this act in US. This information they want to keep for 70 years in secret and as a secret, top secret document. But ICANN is an organization that insisted FDA to release all this information. So they went to court and they won the battle. And that's how we know even before this Pfizer vaccine was approved, FDA actually knew that there, there were actually 1,291 possible side effect, adverse side effect from this vaccine. But they did not disclose to the public, and they still say that it's safe and effective. Right? That's the first thing we know. Right? Then the latest information that came out that FDA actually knew that according to the data, which is actually not randomized, but even without randomized data, they suddenly find that after 100 days of vaccination, the placebo and the placebo and the those who took the vaccine, there were a spike in incident of heart attacks or heart issues, or in those who have taken the jab. 100 days, not 24 hours, not 40 hours, but even 100 days after they took, there were a significant difference in the incident of heart attack or heart issues among those who have taken the jab. But it doesn't matter now. FDA have not disclosed that information when it pushed through the EUA. Right? What to do? Useless even if you know it when you are already jabbed. Right? Just cross your fingers that you are not the unlucky one. Okay? And cross your fingers that you can find out that your body is actually reacting, have symptoms of a heart attack, heart issue. Go and see the doctor immediately. That's all I can say. Every day, last time when I stay in a place one quite near to the CTE, right in Ang Mo Kio, every day I heard the ambulance going in and out. Right now, I shifted house to a place not near any CTE or PIE. I still hear ambulance every morning without fail. Right? So be it. Every day, a few ambulance sightings and sirens. Right? Nobody interested. Not the expert, definitely. Right? Expert, Now, uh, another person show me the Iswaran photos going to the Indian temple to pray. And apparently he has slimmed down. Wow, slimmed down a lot, I think, within these few months. Right? Maybe the stress. Right? And people want me to talk about Iswaran. There's nothing to talk about Iswaran now. Why? We must wait, ma. We cannot comment when case is still ongoing investigation, ma. Correct. Or not? We must wait. But there's something happened in the UK. Now, this Iswaran thing came about because the former F1 boss was charged in United Kingdoms, right? And he was accused of keeping a piggy bank, a lot of money, right? 400 million pounds, I think, in Singapore banks, right? Without disclosure to the the tax authority in London. And through their investigation, they found that some of this money were actually used to sponsor Iswaran, right? In some ways, right? It was not disclosed, but people are speculating here and there, right? That was a speculation. But later on, we have another news coming from India that says that Iswaran was in collusion with the Indian politician, one of the chief ministers of one of the state, right, in a project, right, that actually something like force people to give up their land so that when they rebuild the place, they will be given a place to live, stay in. But as the Indian side says, it was a fraud or a scam or something like that, right? But nothing heard of from our side. Everything is quiet. Okay, so so nobody knows what is going on, right? Nobody knows. Well, this case may drag. The investigation can drag after the next election. Nobody knows, and Israel will continue to take his uh, MP allowance without the need to attend the parliamentary sitting. Very simple. I have said before, Iswaran should know exactly whether he has made a mistake in accepting bribery in kind or otherwise. If he feels that he didn't do anything wrong, right, he should continue to attend the parliament sitting because the voters voted him to represent them in parliament. Right? If you feel that you have done nothing wrong, you are still under investigation only, why should you contend from parliamentary sitting while still taking your parliament uh, MP allowance? That is not fair. But if you are regretful, which you should know whether you have committed a crime of bribery, taking bribes, resign, right? That is the last dignity you can have and accountability you should show to your voters. Resign from the MP seat straight away. You do not need people to investigate to tell you whether you have committed a crime or not. You should know jolly very well that whether you have committed a crime. Why should you wait for people to investigate and tell you whether you are in the wrong? Right? By not doing either way, then who are you? What are you? Why are you doing all this? No accountability, right? No accountability by not attending parliamentary sitting when you are actually paid to do so, when you are actually voted in by the voters to do so, right? It doesn't actually make sense at all, right? Well, when you look at what Leon Pereira has done, no need investigation to say whether he is truly made the wrong uh, so-called engage in a scandal. in the extra marital affairs, he doesn't need people to come and investigate him and to judge on him. He straight away resign, right? That's accountability. You know that you jolly well know that you have done wrong, so called morally wrong. Actually, it's not a criminal to have an extramarital affair, huh? Right? But you take accountability. I think that's good enough. Although personally, I do not think that he needs to resign. Basically, even with an extramarital affairs, his personal life is not a crime. Is not a crime, right? So when you contrast PAP and WP MPs, okay, you will know who has more moral rights, moral high ground when it comes to be accountable to the voters. So next election, please vote carefully. Yeah. Okay. Now, I will still talk about the boring stuff about Gaza. Today I have a meeting. I have a meeting um, talking about politics, talking about Gaza, talking about Israel, Israelis, and Hamas. And yesterday night, a Facebook friend and supporters, I believe, messaged me and said, actually, a lot of my Facebook supporters do not actually agree with my point of view about Hamas and Israelis. Let me put it straight in this term. That's what I told. I spent quite a bit of time to explain to this guy, Kenny. Okay, is whether we want to go into history. That's number one, or talk about current. That's number two. Number three, if you want to talk about history, how far in history do you want to go there with? There's no end to it. Right? Long, long time ago, far, far away, uh, and all those history stuff is meaningless. I've told another supporters, I say, look, if we continue to be binded by the historical stories of who should have right and who should not have right and who come first, who come last, right? Then you are going to live in the shadows or the karmic destiny of the historical perspective. Either you do that and get entangled because historically there's all sort of fightings and entanglements, right? You'll be entangled in all this massive and very messy argument of who is right and who is wrong from a historical perspective and all that. And there's no end in it. And the end result is very simple. You continue fighting lah. Okay? Is that what you want? Or we will choose to break away from the historical binding, and we make new history right from the start, from this moment. Play out, never mind who is right or who is wrong. Back to the basic, how to resolve the problems, how to have long-term peace resolution for the situation right now. And that is a very pragmatic approach. I believe LK White would have done that, right? Dealing with historical perspective, even historical facts can be manipulated, can be twisted, can be misrepresented, right? You can't even remember what you eat 2 months ago. You want to talk about what happened in 2,000 years ago in great accuracy. It's impossible. Okay. Uh, Maybe we can talk about history in the near history, less than 100 years. Maybe yes, right? Because in modern days, historical facts have been recorded, and some of us have been gone through it, have read about it. We still can recollect quite clearly what actually happened. But 2,000 years ago, who lived 2,000 years? Who will know whether the historical perspective is right or wrong? There's no end to it. And worse still, you are talking about religious historical perspective. That's even worse. Because every religion will write their historical accounts in their own perspective with their own biasness. It's natural. That's human beings, right? So how are you going to determine whose account is correct? There's no end to it. Right? So the pragmatic thing to do is to observe the current history, right? Right. Now I'm going to tell you a story with regards historical facts, and not a story. With regards to these Palestinian and Israel conflicts and peace and peace. Yes, you heard it, peace. Right? Because someone actually says that, oh, how can we make peace with Hamas or the Palestinian? Blah 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 blah. I'm going to tell you the what have happened just about 30 years ago, less than 40 years ago. Right? It started in 1969, right? Right after the right after the 1967 UN resolution, which Israelis did not want to abide to. The 1967 resolution is very simple. Israel is supposed to retreat from the occupied land of the Palestine, right? I mean, and the two state should exist, and Palestinian should have their own country, sovereign country, right? Very simple. So Arafat comes into play. He have his first political vehicle, right? I can't remember the name already, but the most people who can recognize is actually a PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, right? PLO. Now, PLO have conducted a lot of bombings, right? And he was always termed as the terrorist organization. But he is not the first terrorist organization in the Middle East. Who is the first terrorist organization in modern history in the Middle East? Do you know? It was the Zionists. Yes, the Jews. The Jews in pressuring the British and the American to give them the land in Palestine to set up their own country, bombed civilian places, bombed the British, right, in Palestine. They were the first terrorists, the extreme right people, right? Of course, then the British give in. The British didn't say, "Oh, you are terrorists. I'm going to kill you all." No, they didn't do that, right? So after much negotiation, it comes after the war, 1947. The UN resolution was driven by the British and the American, and of course with the blessing of a Russian, and it was stated, right? That is history. But after the 6 Days War and all that, PLO became the terrorist organization. And for those people who are out there saying that you cannot negotiate with terrorists like Hamas, I tell you, you can. What happened? PLO under Arafat went on guerrilla fighting, went on bombing, right? So on and so forth. And in 1992, finally, there was a hope for peace in Palestine. Both Arafat and Rabin, right? Yasser Rabin, right? Sat down on the negotiation table, shook their hands, and signed the Oslo agreement. And what does this agreement say? Exactly what we are proposing right now, right? What does it say? The Israelis will actually withdraw for the West Bank, for the Gaza, right? And the Palestine will take over the administration and form their Palestinian state. And there will be no more fighting, right? That was the resolution. That was actually the agreement. Two formal terrorist organization, because Rabin is actually for the extreme right or far right also, right? The Labour Party, right? So they came to terms. They shake hands. They are actually going for their throat in the past, but they shake hands. Unfortunately, unfortunately, Rabin was assassinated not by the Palestinian, right? By his own Israelis, the Jew from the extreme right. So he's a Zionist again. He was assassinated in 1994 during a political rally. Why? Because in 1994, just before that, he had signed a peace agreement with Jordan. So it was the Zionists in Israel who didn't want peace at all, not with the Palestine, not with the Arab countries. And they even go extreme to kill their own leaders if ever they have signed any peace treaty with anyone in Iraq. I want to bring this up very simple. People accuse me I'm siding Hamas, I'm siding Palestine. I didn't. I said, well, on the surface of it, yes, Hamas is wrong to target civilians, especially the kids, the children. Okay. Yes, Arafat died of illness. Actually, not illness. It was suspected Arafat was actually poisoned to death by the Secret Service of Israelis in 2004, 10 years after Rabin had died. These are the historical perspective. Nobody can argue, right? Now, people accuse me. Why am I siding Hamas? I did not side Hamas. I did not say I support Hamas. No, never. Right? On the surface, they should actually be condemned for targeting the children, the innocent civilians. But on second thought, I've explained if you have people, whether it's civilians or not, coming to your land and occupy illegally, or even chase out your people, right? And even block out your people, apartheid. Now, what they are doing, what could you do as a Singaporean? So this cycle of violence will not stop, right? As long as Palestine has been constantly persecuted by the Israelis, especially the Zionists. I will explain the Zionist perspective later. I explain why all these things happen. Right? I can continue to condemn Hamas for whatever things they have done, but will it solve the problem? Will it stop the violence? No, because the cut, actually, the ball is in the court of Israel. Unfortunately, Israel is actually controlled by the Zionists, the far right people, right? And they will never want peace, right? So this is a situation we face right now. And why I will put most of the blame, not all the blame, most of the blame on US, the Americans, the British, as well as the Zionists. Not all the Israelis people. Not all the Israelis people. We have moderates in Israelis people. The Jews, some, I think half of them are actually moderates. Okay? But we have the extremists, the Zionists in Israel, who has been the obstacle for peace in Palestine and Middle East. They were the ones who keep pushing illegal settlement, grabbing land from the Palestine, trying to annex it, hoping to annex it in the end, persecuting all the Palestinians, practicing apartheid rules, administration, and which people without dignity will not resist. The South Africans have resisted against apartheid rule until they won. Simple as that. Right. I will explain the Zionist perspective. I'm going a bit back to history to explain the mentality of the Zionists. They do not want peace. Why? Because Zionists, the far right, now, in all the countries, 95% of the countries in the world, I would say, right? More than 95% of the world, will not vote politicians from either the extreme right or extreme left. Most of the time, they vote for the centrists or the center left or center right politicians. Because in nature, right, if you believe the good mind of the human being, we are actually quite reasonable and quite centrist, right? After the World War II, where the fascist is actually extreme right, right? Hitler is actually extreme right, right? Didn't even get more than 50% of the seats. Nazis actually have only 36%, but they control the coalition and slowly encroach on all the rights. What is happening right now in Israel is similar, not exactly the same, but similar. I'll explain. And control all the control and power concentration comes to one person. That is Hitler. That was what fascists, the extreme right, will do. Right now, what is happening right now in Israel? Actually, the far right, represented Netanyahu, the prime minister, is trying to reform so-called the judiciary. And this reform actually sideline or cut down the power of the judiciary, right, in certain ways of not having the right to judge on the politicians, especially the prime ministers. So it's actually a full control. They do not want a separation of powers. Basically, so it's actually against the democratic principles, right? And this move actually met with resistance. There were actually protests in Israel before all this happened, right? And the far right government actually losing grip, power. And this happened in Gaza, actually helped them to unite, so-called unite the people. And that is actually the power play. Why the Zionists do not want peace? Because if there's peace in Palestine, right, there's no tension, no conflict, no potential conflict from the Arabs and the Palestinians, the far right Zionists will lose their political usefulness. Why? Because their political position is that we must defend ourselves. Great. No, we must not let these Arabs surrounding us for us. It created the besieged mentality of the nation. Right? It created the tension so that they can say, we the Zionists as a political party or politicians, are the only ones that can defend and protect and give safety to everyone else in this country, in Israel. Sound a bit familiar, right? The besieged mentality. They want to create that environment of fear and terror surrounding the country, so that as a hardcore right-wing political arm will actually gain support from the voters, because voters are very kiasi kiasu kiabon. It's not only Singapore only, right? Israeli people are the same. So they created a mental stress, and rightfully so. They will win votes from even the moderates to maintain their political power. They cannot have peace. Strange, huh? But it's how they maneuver. So when you have people like Rabin, who have signed peace treaty with Jordan, signed peace treaty with Arafat, he will die. Right? The moderate will not kill him. He himself is from a Zionist party, the Labour. Right? His own people, the Zionists, will kill him. That is a sad truth of the mentality of the far right extremists. Right? And now you know why I put more stress, more critical comments on the Israelis. Actually, it's not against the Israelis, it's against the far right Zionists in Israel. Because only international pressure, and only by criticizing the Americans and the British, that put pressure on them so that they can put direct pressure on these Zionists, right? It will break them. It will stop them from doing harm to peace and committing war crimes. Right? In the past, if you actually read Israelis political history, right? Whenever the far right Zionist is going to lose an election, they will create tension and conflicts among the Palestinian and the occupying force. This is how they play politics. When you use such tactics once, it's noble. But you use numerous times, it becomes stale. They become predictable. They will become predictable. Right? Singapore is not that bad, but Singapore also in the past, now not so. In the past, we also live in this intense besieged mentality. Right? Our so-called national education always tell us that wow, we are surrounded, right, by unfriendly forces. Only PAP can rule, can give us safety, right? Can manage the country and fend off all these unfriendly people around us. And it's true, because we've fought a war, a small war, right? Small war against the Indonesian in confrontation, right? The Indonesian commandos have come to Singapore, put a bomb at a McDonald house in Orchard Road before. Yes, we have fought that, right? But everything went to normal, but we are still living in that mental siege of tension, of potential tension, right? Well, that is good to a certain extent. It keep us on our toes, not to be relaxed, and it built our national service system. Just like what the Israelis is this. Israeli national service system is more garang. Even the women, the girls will be enrolled into the army. They have this rule, right? They have this rule. You can be a Jew, right? You can, if you are a Jew, you can have a right to stay in Israel for 3 years without being drafted into the national service, right? However, if you live beyond 3 years, right, you were either asked to leave the country or you will have to serve national service down there, regardless of age. Well, there are some exemption, right? Some complicated thing, but in general, right, if you are still young, even above 21 years old, above 18 years old, if you stay in Israel for more than 3 years, you are obliged to serve the national service in Israel. And all Israelis outside of Israel are obliged to serve the national service as well. Just like Singapore. You have this system. The exemption is, I've actually studied the national service exemption. Unless you have a child, right? Case by case basis, right? You will be exempted from national service. You must have a child because they want the population to grow. They want the Jewish population to grow. So they encourage people to have children by giving exemption to those who have children from national service. Right? That's the system. And other exemption clause, right? That's one of the exemption clause I find it quite noble. Okay. Now, so you must understand, people may find that I'm biased, I'm actually support Hamas. I didn't support Hamas. I support Palestine. I do support Palestine to have an independent state because that is the only way to have peace. Just as the formal terrorists, like Arafat and the extreme right, right, Zionist, Rabin, have come to the same conclusion in 1992. That is the only way to have peace. That is the only way. It is only when after Rabin died, being assassinated, the Israelis actually back off from their side of the deal when Sharon come into power. Sharon is a hardcore right wing, right? He has been chasing Arafat, want to assassinate Arafat for the whole of his life, right? Right? And he's a very controversial guy who have who are deemed to have committed war crimes. So committing war crimes is not a new thing for the Israeli politicians, right? Because they are very hardcore, right? But he was never made accountable for his war crimes, the massacre, the deliberate targeting of civilians in the Palestinian. It is nothing new to them. And that is why we have right now another Zionist rightist who openly tell the world, I will not be subjecting myself to war crime, and my generals and my soldiers will be exempted from war crime tribunal when they go in and fight Gaza. This is an open, direct challenge to the Geneva Convention, and all international law on war engagement. And why he dare to do that? Because 老大 is 罩着他 嘛. The Americans, the US, the stupid Americans are actually protecting him. But I can tell you right now, in America, the major cities are having protests. In UK, the major cities are having protests. Right? Not only from the Palestinian, not only from the Muslim, but also for the Jews, the enlightened Jews, the moderates. Right? This is so. So we have to understand. The key problem lies with the Zionists. With the Zionists, you will have Hamas or any other extremist organization on the Palestine side, or even the Arabs, other Arab countries. Right? As long as you continue to persecute a people, you drive these people into extremists, to be terrorists. So you want to unwind and entangle all this cycle of karmic killings and violence. We have to stop the Zionists first. Everyone say, like the Zionists will say, wow, we want to kill all Hamas in Gaza. It's impossible. Why? Unless you kill every Palestinian in Gaza, then there will be no Hamas. As long as there's Palestinian in Gaza, right? No matter how many Hamas fighters you kill, there will be new recruits coming in because you not only kill the Hamas people, you kill the civilians, the Palestinians who have lost their brother, lost their children, lost their daughters. They will become the next Hamas recruits. How are you going to destroy Hamas? You can destroy Hamas in name. Another organization with another name will come in. It will be a never-ending story unless you do the total ethnic cleansing. Kill everyone in Gaza. But could the Israelis dare to do it? Could the Americans allow that to happen? There will be repercussions. Even if you kill everyone in Gaza, the whole Arab world will come after you. There will be no end to violence. That's why I said you can never stop war by using more violence or creating more hatred. You can only stop war and have peace with love and empathy. Right? And forgiveness and compassion. And isn't it that was taught by Jesus Christ himself? One of my Christian friends was trying to give me the historical perspective. I told her, look, wait, stop. Right, stop. How far you want to go into the history? When the historical records have variations, different variants, different accounts. That's number one. Number two, you are a Christian. What did Jesus Christ taught you? If someone slap on your right face, you turn the left face for them to slap. Instead of slapping them back, right? Why? I told her, because Jesus Christ is wise. Why? Because he knew that using violence to return a violent act will not solve the problem of violence. You'll only start the cycle of violence. That's why when you hear with compassion, you slap me on the left, right? Maybe you're angry, right? If we can subdue your anger and your hatred will go on. Your negative emotions will be subsided and there will be no more violence. That is the wisdom of the wise man. Right? It is not difficult to understand. You can never stop war by using hatred, by putting more hatred and committing more conflicts and violence to it. Right? You can only have peace when you use love, compassion, and empathy. And that is exactly what Arafat and Rabin have done in 1992. They were fighting each other after each other's throats. for more than 10 years, 20 years, I think, right from 1969 all the way up to 1992. And they stop and realize, right? No. Well, Sharon, it depends on where you want to stop. If you're talking about the Old Testament, of course, that is not in the teaching. But you're talking about what's the teaching of Jesus Christ, right? That is the teaching. But I said, religion has never ever asked people to kill each other. In fact, the first commandment of the Old Testament is what? Thou shalt not kill. I think not. Most religions started with non-killing of each other. It is only when religion is being politicized. Zionist is a politicized religion of the Judaism, what the Jews believe, Torah. Taking the literal, fundamental interpretation of the Torah, right? You tell me? If the God tell you thou shalt not kill, then suddenly around the road someone wrote something in the book. They say, oh, you should kill because of this and this, and you start justifying killing. There's the contradiction, right? All religion have a politicized version of it, right? Whether it's a Christian, Catholicism, Judaism, Islam, or even Buddhism. Buddhism does have a politicized version, right? Most of I'm a Buddhist. Most of my Buddhists would think that Buddhism will never involve in wars and all that. Actually, it's wrong. There are people who politicize Buddhism as well. Right? I'm not going to deal with it. That's a historical perspective, right? So do not follow the interpretation of a religion literally by anyone. You have to follow your conscience. Very simple. Follow your conscience. What is right and what is wrong. You do not, just like Iswaran, you do not need people to tell you whether you have done wrong or not. Right? Same for being a human being, whatever religion you have. You just have to use your own conscience. Is this right to do this? Right? You don't need to go and reference to the holy book. Right? I never reference back to my scriptures. Right? Because it is in us as a human being. It is only when you are being complicated and politicized in your mind, you start to think all sort of complication, right? All sort of complicated, twisted logic. And it becomes so difficult to understand simple things. Why? Because only people who have the intention to misrepresent, to justify the unjustifiable, right, will go through that complicated path. They cannot convince you, they confuse you. How can you justify violence? Put it that way, very simple. How can you justify violence? There's no way, right? Unless you seek out the roots of all the problems, the mother of all problems, then you deal with it. And in this case, the roots are the Zionists. The Zionists didn't want peace at all because their political motive, their political existence depends on the tension and the conflicts, the lasting tension and conflicts in their country and their surrounding. If there's no conflict, there's no fear, there's no terror, they will be termed irrelevant and redundant. Right? That is a simple fact. And I hope people will see this through and not to shoot anywhere. Right? And of course, the stupid Americans and the British didn't see it clearly. Well, maybe they know, they just allow it to happen for their own political agenda. But I believe when I see a lot of peaceful protesters from all religions, not only the Muslim, the Jews and the Christians are involved in this protest. I think more and more people have already seen through all this, have realized the problems actually lies with the Zionists. Right? But that is them. For us in Singapore, we do not want this to spill over into our country. That means you don't radicalize yourself, whether you are the the ones who are against the Hamas or the ones against the Israelis. You do not have to go and target other people with different religion or different thoughts in Singapore because we are not involved. It's nothing about religion, actually. It's all about power. It's about politics of religion. It's not religion per se, right? The Jews in Singapore have nothing to do with what the Israelis are doing, the Zionists in the Israelis are doing. The Muslims in Singapore have nothing to do with what is Palestinian or the Hamas are doing. So when Hamas try to have a rally call for the all war, I think that is stupid, right? That's stupid. Do not spread your hatred to the world. It will not resolve anything. It will not bring peace to your country, your place. It's the same concept. You cannot have peace. You cannot create peace out of hatred. Simple as that. Right? So for me, whether it's Zionist or the Hamas, they are people who 走火入魔. Right? They are so engrossed in their power play. Right? They've forgotten all human decency. They've forgotten all human morality. What makes us human is actually our morals. Right? So that's my message. Don't come and accuse me of why I'm not against Hamas. I'm against Hamas, but no matter how I scold Hamas, it will not stop the problem. Solve the problem. Right? The key roots lies with the Zionists who have rejected all peaceful means. Right? Who will actually go to the extreme to assassinate people who work for peaceful resolution for Israel and Palestine. These are the people that we are the most dangerous. Right? Thank you for watching and good night.